It is a bit of an embarrassment to actually begin to talk about because so many years ago, while I was 21 years old, I was living in St. Petersburg, Florida. I get an adulterous affair, okay? That's why it's embarrassing. I was married. I had a little son. He was 3 months old, and Jason. And my husband found out that I had been having this affair. And I had met a man that I had met in school, and so he had asked me to leave my husband, so we were talking about it at his house, and there was a knock on the door, and it was my husband, and he came over and he sat down. He sat on the left side of the room, and my friend Edward was on the right side. And unbeknownst to me, Richard said, "You have to make a decision. We both love you. Choose one of us so we can just move on here." And I was shocked. I was astounded because I didn't know that I had been caught in my little, charade. And I was embarrassed, I was humbled, but I was also a bit angry that they didn't tell me that they each knew about this. And so I got angry and I said, well, I'm not going to choose either one of you. So I put my hand on the door to leave. And I heard a voice say to me, "That is not the only decision that you have to make." And I thought, what? Who was that? And I thought, there's only those two men in the room and me. Whose voice is that? It's not Richard's, it's not Edward's. So I turned around to look, and as I did, there stood between both of them seated the personage of Yeshua, which most people know as Jesus, but his real name is Yeshua. He never knew the name Jesus. That's a name given by the Greeks and the Romans, but his Jewish name was Yeshua. And he stood there, and I was like, whoa, and he was gorgeous. He was beautiful. There was this light just emanating from him. And I found out later, I didn't know at the time, it was the Shekinah glory of the Lord. And I thought to myself, wow, he's beautiful. I'll choose you, And he rebuked me because I wasn't coming to him in a way as if I were choosing life or death. I was choosing him because he was so beautiful. And he rebuked me for that, because that's also known as lusting. And so when he rebuked me, it felt like my head almost went right off my shoulders. And when I gained my composure, he was still there. And I thought, what? Now, what was odd was both Richard and Edward were in almost like a freeze frame. And I thought to myself, okay, this is really odd. What is going on here? I've never experienced anything like that before. And believe me, I had a lot of strange experiences in my life. But this one was like, the biggest thing that had ever happened at that time. And so I couldn't wrap my mind around it. And he came towards me and he said, "Truly, this day you will die." And I laughed out loud and I said, "Die?" I said, yeah, I'm 21. I'm in perfect health. And it was boom, my body hit the floor and I was dead. And this is my near-death experience. I was totally dead. And I was in a very dark void, very dark. It was so dark. I knew my whole body was there, but I couldn't see. There was zero light, no light. And I held my hand up, but I could not see it. And I kept drawing my hand closer till it actually hit my nose, but I could not see it. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is darker than dark. I mean, this is pitch dark. I'd never known pitch dark, because even in the darkness as a little girl, as you lay down to go to bed, or any time of your life, your eyes will adjust to the night. They will adjust, and sooner or later you'll be able to kind of make things out in the dark. Even if it's pitch dark, you can still kind of make things out. Not in this dark. There was no making it out, and I kept going like this, thinking it'll adjust, it never adjusted. And my fear I felt very separated from life, from everything. I couldn't identify with anything there. It was so quiet. It was poisoning quiet. And it was scary because you didn't know what else was there. You know, like, where am I and what else is here with me? I can't see anything. And I started crying. I started screaming. And I didn't know what to think. But as I laid there, and I didn't even know how I was laying, where I was laying, what I was touching. There was no way of knowing. It was all about me, okay, because I couldn't figure anything out. And life is not about me or you or us. You know, it's about what we experience and who we know and how we interact and what we do. But all of a sudden, it was just me, myself, and I alone and separate from everything. And that fear is very real. And I was screaming out, I want to live, I want to live. And it was no small scream. This was a full scream of a 21-year-old at the top of my lungs. And nothing, the darkness was there. And then I felt this click on the top of my head. And it started going very slowly, like a crack, down the back of my head, my neck, my shoulders, my back, my sciatica, down my leg, all the way slowly. This did not happen quickly. It went down all the way to my big toe. And at that point I thought, oh no, whatever I was as a human being is now going to spill out all over wherever I am. Is there a floor here? I still couldn't see. And nothing made sense. And this is death. Death swallows you up. And it was so frightening. And I was so alone and afraid. And I started screaming even louder. And all of a sudden, after the crack, somehow or other, my body stood back up. And both Richard and Edward told me this later. Nothing, your arms didn't pick you up. You literally were on the floor and your body came right back up and stood on your two legs. And they said it was absolutely mind-blowing, fearful. And they could not understand how that could have possibly happened. And they were both shocked. But they were still, when I stood there, in a freeze frame. And they hadn't moved, except the expressions in their eyes were like this. But he was still standing right there between them. Yeshua was still there. And I thought, well, who are you? The Lord? And I thought, well, who is he? And he walked up to me with his hand out like this. And he said, I am the Alpha and the Omega, your resurrection. I'm like, resurrection? You know, and I couldn't understand this. I'm like, I'd never heard those words before. And I thought, you've got to be kidding me. You know, you're the Lord? You know, what? And then he said, as he held his hand out, and I looked down from his eyes, which were absolutely stunningly, amazingly powerful, and I looked at his hand, and I could see the carpet through a hole in his hand. And then I remembered from being a little girl, yeah, he hung on a cross, you know, he died. I didn't understand that he died for me or anything like that. I just know he hung on a cross and he died. I was a little kid. What did I know, you know? And so I'm like, wow. And I even said out loud, I can see the carpet. I can see the carpet. And I was in shock at that point. Who's got a hole that big on their hand that you can see that carpet? I'd never seen that on another person. And so then I knew this is the Lord. And he said to me, you are my chosen child. And I said, what? Chosen for what? And I never heard him speak, but his hands came again like this, and he handed me something, and I don't know why I reached out, because I wasn't understanding why, but my hands reached out and took it in, and it came inside of me, and it was like, And all of a sudden I felt cloaked with this really heavy drapery kind of cloak. I felt like I could feel it. Couldn't see it, but I could feel it. And it felt like there was something very heavy that he put on my head all of a sudden. And I thought, what is that? And when I was a little girl, probably about 9 or 10, 8, 9 or 10, there used to be this TV program called Queen for a Day. And they used to place a little thing on her head and a cloak around her. And I thought, why do I feel like a queen? I feel like a queen for a day. I'm like, well, this is stupid. But, it didn't make any sense to me. And so I wasn't in charge. And as all these things kept going on, he kept speaking to me, all kinds of things. And it was like I was getting this data dump from this figure. I could somewhat see through him, but he was 99% solid. And it was so strange because the power, and I looked around the room as I was looking at Richard and Ed, who were still just like this. I mean, they were frozen. There was not one shadow in that room, not one shadow. And you and I never experienced that. If you look behind me, there's shadows in my room. Like, see the lamp? There's a shadow. That wouldn't have been there. There's shadows everywhere of things around me. Even now, as I look in the room, it's just, even the pictures on the walls have little shadows. And when he was there, it was like this, it was like this huge light, power. And when he spoke, I could hear this powerful, authoritative, all-knowing kind of, it was just unbelievable how my spirit was interacting, and the sound, it was just like, it engulfed all of you. And it held you very captive and safe and wonderful. And I said to him, what do you want me to do? Because after all, I had to make a decision. And my decision was this: what do you want me to do? And he went and stood next to Richard. And I thought, okay, great. That's what I'm doing. I'm going back. I'm going back with Richard. I'm going home. I picked up my purse. I headed to the door. I said to Richard, let's go home. And I ran out to my car. Richard had his car. I drove home. The experience went on for another about 4 hours. And I won't get into all that because it is very deep and incredibly personal. I can tell you this: the next day when I woke up, I couldn't believe what had happened to me. And I ran to the windows and threw back the drapes to look outside to see. And I said to my husband, Richard, I died last night. Where are we? Are we still on the earth? And he's looking at me like, what is wrong with you? Of course we're still on the earth. You're not dead. You didn't die. And I said, oh, I died last night. I don't know where I was, but I would say it was hell. I would say to me, it was my hell. And it was dark, and I'm alive. And I said, quick, let's get dressed and walk outside. I want to put my feet on the street. I want to go outside. I just want to see the sun. I want to breathe the air. I said, I am so traumatized by what happened to me yesterday, and I can't really understand it. Well, that was my near-death experience, and it changed my life 100%. And my friend who came over that had been babysitting Jason that night while I was over at Edwards, when Richard came to get me, he was a Christian. And so he came over, and I said to him, Dean, I can't believe this. He's real. God is real. Yeshua is real. He's really real. And he goes, what are you talking about? And I said, what do you mean, what am I talking about? Aren't you a Christian? You met him too, right? And he goes, Teri, nobody meets him. You just believe in him. And I went, what are you talking about, Dean? I was with him last night. And Dean looked at me like I was absolutely out of it. And I said, wait a minute. You tell me you know him? You tell me you understand who he is? And you've never even met him? You've never even seen him? And I said, well, why did I see him? And he goes, Teri, did you really see him? And Richard goes, oh my God, I watched her go through all of these things. I couldn't move. I watched her lay on the floor and stand right back up. And with that, Dean wouldn't believe me, but he would believe Richard because Richard saw. And Ed was, right about that time, Ed called and goes, is she okay? Is she okay? And Richard said, yes, she's okay. You know, and he said, what happened last night, Richard? And he goes, what was that? And so they were both talking, and then they spoke to Dean. Well, Dean ran right to his church and told his pastor, and of course his pastor got me on the Christian television network in Largo to talk about it, and he also had me on several radio programs to talk about it. And what absolutely was so heartbreaking for me, people didn't want to know about how powerful and how amazing and how wonderful and glorious and, man, off the charts he was. You know what they cared about? What did he look like? I'm like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding? That's all you care about? How tall was he? 5'9.5" it looked like between 5'9", 5'10". I mean, he seemed tall to me. You know, I'm not that tall. And what color were his eyes? And I'm like, oh my God, what was his voice like? What was he wearing? They all wanted to know about the outward appearance of him, not what he had to offer from the power that was coming out of him. And I answered all those questions. You know, he perfect shape, gorgeous features, you know, powerful hair, all white and curled into right here. You know, it was longer, and I know that sounds crazy, but it was. You know, this is what I saw and experienced. And he was wearing a white gown that had a sash with, it was gold, and it went all the way to the floor. It had long arms on it, and he was just absolutely amazing, the power that was coming off of him. And back in 1973 when this happened, nobody wanted to know about that. They just wanted to know what he looked like, and I was so heartbroken by that. And so, anyhow, that was my near-death experience. Now, oddly enough, as wild as that night was, it turned me around. I was an adulteress. I was self-centered. I was immature. And, you know, at 21, you think you know it all. You think you're pretty bright, you know, you think you kind of got this place, you've got this place figured out, right? And so, well, I had been working previously at Honeywell Aerospace in Clearwater, Florida, and I was a secretary there in the print room, and I had been laid off and I was awaiting my job. And so in 1979, now this is a few years later, I'm coming home late from my part-time job as I'm waiting to be rehired to Honeywell. And it's about 2 o'clock in the morning when I get off work, and so I'm driving home, and I'm in a little Honda Civic, and as I'm driving home, I'm coming down 28th Street North and hovered over the railroad tracks. I'm looking at this thing as I'm driving down the street, and I'm getting closer and closer and closer to the railroad tracks, and I'm looking at it going, what the heck is that? And it's not a railroad car. It's a UFO. And I said right out loud in my car, I don't believe in UFOs. Why would you allow me to see this, Lord? Why would you allow me to see this? I'm on the worship team at church. I'm raising, now I had 2 boys, my 2 little boys, Jason and Joshua. I'm teaching the children at church. I'm doing all kinds of different things for the Lord at church, ministry and all this. And I said to the Lord, nothing can happen to me that you don't allow. But why would you allow me to see this garbage? This isn't real. This is comic book entertainment. And the Lord said to me, Teri, there is so much you do not understand. And I thought, well, yeah, okay, and I'm not the brightest star in the sky, I know. I mean, I don't know everything. But this? UFOs? Come on, I mean, get real. Lord, are you kidding me? And I must have said, are you kidding me 50 times that night to him, because I couldn't fathom it. Are they real? Yes. Do they exist? Yes. My car, as I got closer, stopped. Never had engine before in the Honda Civic, Never had trouble with that car ever. And now it's dead, right on the street, about less than 200 feet from this craft. And the craft is hovered over the railroad tracks like this, and I'm staring at it. Now, Honda Civics are pretty small, and I'm looking at it with my hands on the wheel going, what in God's name? Why? Why? You know, why? And I said to myself, Teri, whatever you do, don't get out of the car. The minute I said that, my hand went to the doorknob, opened it, and I got out and stood there. Now I grab the the door jamb, and I'm holding onto the door jamb, looking at this thing going, oh, now I'm like, oh my gosh, this thing is gorgeous. It's all one piece of silver metal with a blue light radiating around it. Now, back in 1979, we didn't have fiber optics, so I had no clue what that blue light was all about, okay? But it was like a fiber optic light, and it was so light blue. It was absolutely gorgeous. We hadn't seen those colors in 1979. And so or at least I hadn't, and they may have had fiber optics, but I had never seen them. And so I'm standing there looking at this, and I'm saying to the Lord, what is it? I mean, literally no windows, no doors, just a silver thing, and it almost looks like it's alive. I mean, it doesn't look like a piece of steel or a hunk of, like what a train car would look like. And I thought, man, that thing is as smooth as glass, but it almost looks like it's a living biological thing. Oh, that's ridiculous. I mean, it couldn't possibly be. I mean, it's steel, right? But I'm overwhelmed, and I'm probably overthinking it as I'm looking at it, but I'm just blown away, and I'm standing there. And all of a sudden, Sabrina, I'm in front of the car. And I went, what? How did I get here? I never let go of the door jamb. How did I get here? Well, I had missing time, but because I didn't know about missing time, I didn't know I had missing time, okay? Because you can only know what you know. And if you don't know about that, and what did the Lord say to me? There's so much that you do not understand. Well, the Lord was causing me to understand things. And I didn't know that at the time, okay? I figured that out later. But as I was looking at this thing, I noticed over to my right in this big, huge land area running along the side of the tracks, it was an empty lot. And there was another craft which had landed I never even saw until just then. And this huge blue-white light came at me from there, and all of a sudden I looked over and I acknowledged it. And as I was watching it, this white, tall, thin, ugly white being pulled forward out of that light, but I could see right straight through that thing. Like if you've ever held your thumb up to a lantern, you can see right straight through that there's hardly any bone there. You don't see a bone. You can see right through your fingernail, And I'm looking at it like, that looks like it doesn't have any bones in it, And I'm like, what? So as I'm watching that, I'm saying to the Lord, that thing is so ugly, I am not looking at it. It had this thin, long neck and a big head with these strange eyes. I didn't see a mouth. I didn't see a nose, no clothes, big head. And long, dangly arms, long, weird fingers, and it was pure white. And I thought, what the heck is that? I'm not looking at it. And the next thing I know, I look down because I'm like, I'm not looking at it. I'm like, oh my God, I'm 2 feet off the ground. And I went, what? What? Are you kidding me? How can you be 2 feet off the ground and not like rocking? And I was as stable as I could be. And I thought, okay, this isn't making any sense to me. I can't understand what I'm experiencing. And the only thing that ever reminded me of was I couldn't understand what I was seeing when I saw the Lord. Now I can't understand what I'm seeing when I'm seeing this crazy thing. And the next thing I remember, he or it or God is moving me towards this thing, and now it's on my left, and I keep turning away, and I get real close to it, just close enough to pass right by it, and I see it, and I absolutely pass out. I guess I just passed out from fear, And the next thing I remember was being inside that other craft, and I'm laying in this room, and it's all white, a glowy, soft white glow. 1979, we didn't have soft white glow light bulbs, okay? We had the neon things that turned everything yellow or orangey-ish, or just regular little bulbs, which also turned everything kind of orangey, yellowish. And this was the softest white glow, soft on your eyes, very comforting. I didn't feel freaked out or anything, except that I was freaked out. But I mean, it wasn't freaking me out. I was just freaked out for being there, and I had been laying down. And I lifted up my head, and I saw that I had my uniform on from work, and I had these little beige sandals on my feet. And I saw that my sandals were still on my feet, and my clothes were on me, but where was I? So I was feeling like, okay, what is going on? Then I see these two moving things coming at me, and they're these gray type, what people call aliens. Well, I didn't know they were called aliens because I didn't believe in aliens. And one was touching came up around the side of that table or whatever it was I was laying on, which was also white. The walls, the ceiling, the floor, the table, everything was like it was in a suck down, like it was just white. And I couldn't understand that because that's not how we live. We live with furniture and things. Nothing was in that room but me, the white, and these beings. And his hand was like near my left, going on my left ankle. And that just absolutely panicked me. And I was like, oh, and I thought, oh God, where's that ugly white thing? And the minute I thought that, it was right there. And I looked up and I was like, oh my gosh. And I thought, oh my God, what is going on? I'm talking to the Lord the whole entire time, which still mind boggles me, okay? Because I won't really understand all of this until I get to heaven with the Lord and say, what was that all about? What was that all about? But there he was, and he looked right at me, and I looked into his eyes, and I thought, oh my God, freaky, ugly, scary. And he said, we will not harm you, but he had no mouth, okay? We will not take you. And I thought, take me? Take me where? What are you talking about? And that scared me, and I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I didn't remember anything after that. But here's the thing. I didn't know about mental telepathy because I didn't know about mental telepathy. So he was talking to me through his eyes, but I didn't know that. I'm like, how am I hearing you without your mouth moving? Nothing made sense. And so the next thing I clearly remember was standing back in front of my car. And I'm like, what? How did I get here? And so as I was standing there, there's the hovered one, still hovered over the railroad tracks. And I thought, okay, but now I'm not the same girl that went into that other craft. I've got this different attitude. So whatever happened inside of that craft in that time of missing time, which I did not get at the time, I now was saying, don't leave me here. I literally said this out loud. Don't leave me here. I don't want to be here. I don't want to be here. Take me with you. Take me with you. And then I said, what? Shut up, Teri. What are you saying? What are you saying? And I'm like, Lord, what? Why would I say that? And it was like my insides and my outsides were fighting against each other all of a sudden. It was like I was saying things I couldn't even fathom in my own mind. And I'm like, why would I say that? And then it was like just a few seconds later, I said it again. And I went, don't leave me here. Don't leave me here. I don't want to be here. And I thought, what? And the only other thing that I could ever even relate that to was one time when the Lord had taken me out of my body and I had a vision. And I remembered saying to the angel that was bringing me back from the vision in 1974, I said, I don't want to go back there. Don't make me go back there. I don't want to go back there. Talking about here, Earth, okay? And all of a sudden I'm begging this extraterrestrial to get me out of here. And the Lord told me I had to come back. And the extraterrestrial wouldn't take me. And I'm screaming and I'm going, what? I'm not good enough? Why aren't you taking me? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? I start blaming myself like something's wrong with me. And then I'm like, Teri, shut up. What are you saying? And I'm like, okay, this is maddening. This is maddening. One side of me wants to go. One side of me is saying, no, you have to stay. And I'm in this conundrum. Well, this thing is still just like this, and I'm screaming at it and crying, and now I'm literally crying with tears. Please don't leave me here. I don't want to be here. It's like I have been chosen to be somewhere else, and I don't really want to be on the earth, and there's a good reason for that, and we can talk about that. And our spirits don't want to be here. And if given our druthers, we would, most of us, just leave. But that's not how it's appointed for us. We're here for a purpose and a reason. Otherwise, I'm sure we would all check right out,
If my assumption is correct, is that it seems when you had this UFO encounter, you were sort of doing things almost like being compelled to do them. So
Yes.
It doesn't feel like you had any will, right? Because
I did not. I was being manipulated. Yes.
Yeah, right. So that must have been terrifying to sort of mentally realize that I'm saying I'm not leaving my car, and then all of a sudden my hands are opening the door and I'm exiting the car, where I have no control over almost, it seems like my body, right? What my hands do, what my legs do.
Exactly. And that is the beginning of fright. That was the beginning of my fear. And then trying to understand it deepened my fear. And then having to deal with what I just experienced, it blew my mind, okay? I mean, we can only handle just so much here in these pea brains and with what we've got to work with, and we're all very different. We all have different experiences and we all have different understandings, IQs, we're all very different. And I just felt so pressed. And when you're trying to understand something you've never experienced before, I am here to tell you, because that has happened so many times to me, I can't even remember them all, honestly. I try to jot things down when they happen so I don't forget. It's so overwhelming because you want to trust in something very solid, very firm, very knowable. And we can to some degree, and then the degree seems to dissipate and you're like, what? Where am I? What is this? What is happening? And you have to walk through that. And it was my faith in God that walked me through those things. Now, not everybody walks with God, so how they get through it is their experience and their understanding and what they are allowing to happen to them. Excuse me. So we're all incredibly different, but we're all walking each other home. From the cradle to the grave, it's one direction. And it has many rabbit holes, many rabbit holes. And depending which way we go, there's a straight and a narrow path, and then there's all these other ways that take you off that path. That is a simple analogy, I suppose, of what I'm saying. And where we go and what we get involved with, and sometimes what even the Lord allows us to get involved with, to teach us or to train us or to guide us or to give us wisdom. I truly believe we're all spiritual beings on a human journey at this moment, and that as we are here, we're here to learn and absorb. And as we grow and we start from this tiny little naked baby, We come bringing nothing with us, nothing, not even experiences, but we do, many of us have remembrances, which is why near-death experiencers don't want to come back. We have an understanding of that love that God is, the great I am, the Holy One. And that is where we did come from. Not all of us are going to go back there. He has given us a choice here. That's why we're here. Make a choice. I don't want you serving me because I created you. I want you serving me because you love me and you understand and you want to know. So that's what this whole thing, life, is about. And as we age, many of us will key into it through experiences and listening to different things and learning different things. Sometimes doctrines and theologies and those kinds of things will lead us then to the truth. Not all doctrines and theologies are true, but we can find it if we look for it. And so many different experiences in our lives will either be something that is a positive or a negative. And I can honestly say, as wild as that experience was, with the extraterrestrials and that craft in '79, nothing hurt me. I was not hurt, but I was drawn to a place of making a decision. What will I do now with this experience? How do I handle this? 99% of the Christians cannot understand me. They don't have the capacity to handle this because they did not have to go through it. But that's okay. That's okay. This is my walk. I was chosen for this walk. You, Sabrina, are chosen for your walk, and those people are chosen for their walk. We all contribute as a whole. And some of us have a much deeper or even a higher calling than the others. And the problem is people judge one another. But the Lord tells us, if you judge someone, you're going to be judged just like that. So don't judge. But they do anyway, because it's part of the human condition that we judge. And it isn't correct. There's nothing right about it. We need to love one another, respect one another. And if you're suffering because of some experience, I should be there for you. If I know you, I should be there for you. I should comfort you. I should try to help you. Always, the older women should always teach the younger, because obviously the older women are going to have more experience than the younger. The older men should teach the younger. We should guide one another and help and have a hand reaching out, not judging or slandering or backbiting or talking about them or being ugly because of what? What makes us ugly? Jealousies, immaturities. It's things that we don't understand ourselves. And sometimes it is just pure jealousies that somebody else has something you don't have, or they understand something you don't understand. Well, that's not a reason to be jealous. That's a reason to be inquisitive. That's a reason to find out. In the Bible it says, ask, seek, and knock. Well, that's getting wisdom and understanding. And wisdom is one thing, understanding is another. You can have all the wisdom you want, but if you don't understand any of it, what good is it? And that's why I was saying to the Lord I don't understand. I don't understand. What is this? Help me. And he did. And here I am today at 72, still understanding, learning all these things about being here in this life. What can happen? Are demons real? Yes, very real. They are manipulating humanity like you cannot believe. I mean, it's a cesspool, and people don't even see it. I had a very, very strange life, and different from most. And similar to many, okay? I'm not unique, I'm not special, nothing special about me, trust me. But there's a group of us that are like in this vein, and a group of people in this vein, and a group of people, we all have these different veins of understanding and experiences and how we react, and it contributes to who we actually become. But anyway, so I have had paranormal, I have had extraterrestrial, I have had spiritual, demonic, angelic experiences.